It all started in a hotel where we both happened to be guests. Every evening I sat in my favorite armchair where I could watch her descend the curved staircase and walk through the vast baroque lobby. Although I was very curious, I never attempted to learn anything about her. It was enough for me to have the pleasure of watching her exquisite journey as she walked past me with her slow, confident step. The soft fabric of her translucent gown flowed around her long, slender legs, and I could hear the metallic sound of her thin-heeled shoes as she moved across the cold marble floor. When she disappeared through the heavy glass revolving door into the street, it sounded as if she had been sucked into the night. One evening she approached me and started a conversation. We quickly made an arrangement which required us to meet on specific days in her room, where we devised programs for blindfolded people. We spent almost every afternoon together, creating elaborate processes. She had an aura of corruption about her, and I suspected that her past life contained some events that were ominous and perhaps unfortunate. I felt that she was considering the possibility of revealing herself to me. But one day when I came to her room, she was not there. I thought perhaps she had another engagement. But weeks went by and she did not return. The notion occurred to me that perhaps she was in terrible danger and was being held accountable for past events. I spent the afternoon searching for her in places that we had been together. Each day, the feeling got stronger that I had an obligation to find out what had happened to her, and I became obsessed with the task of finding traces of her past life. I have been living in her room, which is cluttered with mementos and old photographs. One of the photographs is of a crowd of people in a caravan traveling across the desert. Their frozen gestures seem to represent some kind of specific event. Their poses are amusing, but I misunderstand the reality of the situation. Our pursuit is becoming reckless, but recourse to memory is impossible. There is a photograph in a gold frame placed on a small ornate table in front of the window overlooking the garden. It is of a little girl standing next to an armchair. She seems lost in her dress. The skirt of white brocade is stiffly starched and the pleats precisely ironed. Long black leggings protrude from the bottom of the dress and are tucked into the strong tops of the little girl's leather boots. The only reason for such a costume has to do with falling sick. They must have been afraid that the child would fall down. The armchair looks entirely normal. I am sitting in an armchair in her abandoned room on the absurd pretext of finding an explanation for the photographs. I am convinced that the woman is dead. This possibility is suggested by the sinister overtones in some of the photographs in her room. One is a picture of a woman kneeling down, with her head bent forward to her knees, and a man is standing over her. In that position, she is only able to see his boots with the pants stuffed into the top. Hidden in a drawer are several photographs of two women in various poses eating fruit in the sun. But by far the most interesting picture is the one hanging on the opposite wall. From my chair across the room, it seems ambiguous and unimportant, obscured as it is among her chaotic array of information. But during my search through her possessions, I am lured closer and closer to the small space it occupies. The image is grainy and out of focus, as if it had been blown up again and again. It seems to suggest some sort of turbulence on the surface of a lake or the sea, where I am walking alone on the shore. The air is heavy and the hot white sand feels metallic under my feet. Something causes a slight breeze and my footsteps are obscured. There's a rowboat nearby, and I climb in and begin rowing away from the shore toward the disturbance in the water made by a swimmer. I can feel the oars dip into the weightless texture of the waves as they move under me, changing in reference to the photograph. Below me I can see glass and marble pagodas and mosques, submerged deep beneath the surface of the sea, where the woman is swimming among the domes and spires. A lightning bolt has struck her, reflecting light in her hair. She has forgotten the correct movements, and now her performance is out of control. After a short, confused silence, the other performers come out onto the dark stage, lit only by a spotlight. The audience is delighted. They are amused by the ridiculous tableau of an old blind woman leading a caravan of pilgrims through the desert to a city beyond the mountains. The travelers seem exhausted and lost. They have forgotten to bring supplies and are slowly dying. I am bored by the spectacle and go to sleep. I have a dream about the woman. She is approaching an old abandoned house through a polished gate made out of bamboo. She enters through the kitchen door. The table is covered with a white brocade cloth and is set with crystal and fine china. Clothes have been hung on racks, which are placed conveniently for fast costume changes in front of the large windows that overlook the sea. Lovely satin gowns covered with sequins and rhinestones, and soft velvet suits with embroidered silk shirts shimmer in the light reflected from the water. The clothes are too small for the performers and appear to have been made for children. Several lengths of rope are strung across the room at knee height, and an old torn lampshade made out of some sort of transparent leathery substance has been placed on a small ornate table next to a broken armchair. Discarded surgical instruments are lying on a shelf above a workbench, and over them several unfinished marionettes are hanging by their necks from wires. Some small metal machines are lying haphazardly on a table in the corner, as if someone had suddenly been called away while working on a project. is a huge theater where there are several hundred old-fashioned beauty parlor chairs bolted to the floor in neat rows facing the stage. Each one has a dusty towel folded over the right arm. Strange metal objects hang from the high vaulted ceiling on long, thick chains. Extending from them and reaching almost to the beauty chairs below are green electrical cords frayed at the connections, which have rusty metal clips on the ends. The clips are attached to the hair of the women who are brought there, and they are given permanent waves and shock treatments. There are photographs of them hanging over the woman's narrow bed. They do not come from the city beyond the mountains, but their faces suggest those of the pilgrims in the play. They seem to be lost because they have been distracted by the little girl who appears disguised as a mirage. The pilgrims have gathered around a small child lying on its back in the sand. An old man is cutting around the forehead with a razor blade. Dozens of flies sit on the child's face, eating the blood, which drips down so that the head lies in a red puddle. Its face is peaceful and beautiful, as if it is swimming in thin air. I am waiting at the hotel for instructions. There are soldiers with machine guns along both sides of the long, narrow street. A man begins to move toward me. Something bright and metallic gleams in his hands, some kind of machine. He stands over me, forcing my head down to my knees. I can see the bars of his uniform move up and down as he raises his hand to my head again and again. I see bits of my hair falling, catching the light from under my arms, obscuring the footprints. There is no way that I can attract the attention of the woman. One of the camels has collapsed from exhaustion. Men come with steel axes and begin to cut it up while it is still alive. As they hack through the quivering white flesh, the huge beast looks pained and aristocratic, and even more puzzled as its legs are chopped off. Finally, there is the head still alive. There is not a scream of protest, not a struggle. The animal submits like a palm tree. But for days afterwards, the sand is soaked with its blood, and our bare feet are printed by the moisture. The caravan has stopped because the pilgrims believe that they are lost. There are only mountains ahead of them. The old blind woman picks up a handful of sand and tastes it, as if it were food. She tells us to continue the journey. The pilgrims mix the blood into the sand. Then we follow the old woman toward the city beyond the mountains. That is where the story begins. But what happens to the pilgrims after they reach the city? I don't know.